Welcome to the iSpace Wellbeing Expert Talk Series, bringing you advice, tips, and great conversation about mental health and well-being in young people. iSpace Wellbeing is a free of charge, multi-award-winning mental health and well-being solution for schools. Using a whole school, progressive and evidence-based approach, we make conversations about mental health and well-being flow naturally, both inside and outside of the classroom. Our fun, age-appropriate framework starts from 4 years old and covers all the key stages of a child's education. Schools choosing iSpace Wellbeing will not only give their teachers access to over 200 digital lessons, plans and other resources, but also free CPD-accredited training. Why not join the growing number of schools around the globe who are choosing iSpace Wellbeing for their students' mental health and well-being education? For more information, visit iSpaceWellbeing.com.
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And my earphones are working. I'm really getting quite good at this now. I'm managing to set up everything myself. I'm managing to get sound working. So this is it's off to a very good start this evening.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh no, I'm actually feeling a bit starstruck because when I've read through your bio, I'm kind of feeling, whoa, this is fantastic to have you with us this evening. So what I'll do is I'll just introduce the series to everybody just so they know what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. And then we can introduce you, and then we'll get right straight into all of our lovely questions. As you can see, Johnny, I wrote a lot of questions because I wanted to find out so many different things. And I know you're full of so many good tips as well. So I was going to try and squeeze as much as I can into our 30 minutes to 45 minutes this evening.
Yeah, sounds good.
So
Sounds good.
we've got lots of people joining us, and just wanted to introduce why we're here. This is the iSpace Wellbeing May series, because May is the Mental Health Awareness Week is in May, and we've been doing a lot of work around that. I know you have as well, Johnny. We'll talk a little bit about that more a little later on. And iSpace, I am the founder of iSpace Wellbeing, which is the free mental health and well-being solution for schools, full of lovely resources, a complete package that schools can just sign up for on our website for free. And we are just really trying to get as many people on our series to spread the good word about all of the work that we are doing for young people and their mental health. So I'm going to welcome Jonny once again and give a little summary of your bio, because as we go into all of our questions, we'll find out much, much more about you. But Jonny Benjamin, MBE, award-winning mental health campaigner, film producer, public speaker, writer, and vlogger. Diagnosed with a mental health disorder in his 20s, and has also done an awful lot of filming, especially on YouTube, around mental health, which has been watched by millions all over the world. Jonny has done lots of public speaking on television, on radio, raising awareness around mental health and reducing stigma around this very important part of our health. And you ran a campaign in 2014 for hashtag Finding Mike, a man who helped talk you off a bridge when you were feeling suicidal. And you then went on to write a book about this experience and also a film as well. So Jonny, I'm just going to mention as well, because this is something that I've been involved in with you as well, which is your fantastic charity, Beyond and Now and Beyond, and all of the work that you are doing for schools and for young people through your charity, and ensuring that young people in schools are getting the support that they need. And your wonderful festival that you had for Children's Mental Health Week, and also what you've done just recently in the month of May during the Mental Health Awareness Week as well. So lots of stuff there for parents and for schools to go and look at. So now, Jonny, this is going to be your turn. I did actually talk to a friend of yours today, who I'm going to do a little bit of work with. And he works in film, and I did have to let him know that when he asked me to do a few bullet points, that I was Irish and I have kissed the Blarney Stone a number of times over. So although I don't speak Blarney, I do have the gift of the gab. So I'll try my best
I
to.
want to know who this friend is. I'll find out afterwards who this friend is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you both have a llama together called Jake at the Llama Park, very close to where I live. And I shall be making sure that I go and visit Jake the llama this week because the Llama Park is open again. So I'll look after him for you.
Oh, amazing! That's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing.
Brilliant.
That's
So
amazing.
Jonny, tell us please about your first book, because I think this book brought all of your experiences to life, and brought you on perhaps a new journey in your life as well. So tell us about this new book and why it was written, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for having me on as well. Thank you. I love your flowers in the background. Yeah, so I have a new book called The Book of Hope, and we kind of wanted to do what it says on the tin, really. We wanted to give people hope. It's been such a difficult past year for so many people. I mean, yeah, it really has been so tough and so challenging, and so many different reasons for so many people everywhere. So yeah, we put this book together. So 101 different voices, all who have overcome different challenges, to offer their wisdom, really. I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to put this book together with my co-author Britt, and get to read all these amazing accounts of how people have overcome their really tough challenges, and found hope again, and found ways to manage their mental health. There's just so much wisdom that comes out of every single account in that book. So I was very lucky to get to sort of put it all together and read all these amazing stories of human resilience and hope. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've been looking at this book, and one of the people in it, Shaka, I think is amazing. And I've been having a few little conversations with him as well, because I think his story is so inspiring. And all of the other people that you have in there as well. I'm going to read a little bit more about them too. But it is an amazing book, and I love the name as well, Hope. And I think it's fantastic that is out there now for people to have a look at and read. And as you say, that resilience and overcoming adversity and challenge in people's lives. So it's a great book for everyone to have a look at. But let's reverse back to your first book. Tell us a little bit about that, because that is something that you went on to do a film on, and I'd love to hear the story behind that first book that you wrote.
Yeah, sure. So the first book was called The Stranger on the Bridge, and I guess it kind of told my journey of having mental health issues, to the point when I ended up on a bridge, and had this encounter on this bridge with this stranger who talked me off the edge. And we went on to, he talked me off the edge, and the police intervened at that point, and we were separated. But then years later, when I was in a better place, I decided to look for him. As you mentioned, I launched this campaign to find him, and amazingly, we were reunited. And we went on to work together, and we set up this charity together. So the book just kind of tells the story of all of that journey from childhood, really, up until kind of present moment. Like just literally the whole story. And hopefully gives people an insight into living with a mental health issue, hopefully.
Absolutely. And because I was going to ask you, because you were diagnosed in your 20s, but lots of people that I talk to who are now adults, and they talk about their mental health challenges that they may have had or may have been diagnosed with, they, on reflection, recognize that they had knew they had issues long before the diagnosis. So, so often I hear about adults and young people as well in their late teens talking about recognizing they had issues when they were as young as 8, some people as
Yeah.
young as 8, and but they didn't really know who and how to ask for help. Now, did you have a similar, when in retrospect or in reflection, did you recognize anything at that time, or was it later?
Well, so when I was 5, my parents took me to see a psychologist, child psychologist. Um, I was having what we call night terrors, you know, really vivid, horrible nightmares. And I stopped sleeping properly, and yeah, so my parents didn't know what to do, and eventually I was referred to this child psychologist. So I guess even, yeah, from the age of 5, like, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah,
I didn't, I didn't know what mental health was. I never knew what mental health really was, and I didn't understand what, why I was seeing a psychologist, or you know, it just wasn't talked about. It was a taboo. Even though I was seeing a psychologist, um, it just wasn't. It was kind of like the elephant in the room.
yeah,
Um, so I just, yeah, I just didn't understand any of it. And
yeah,
I'm not blaming anyone for that. You know, that was the way it was. We didn't talk about mental health, but yeah, I just, yeah, looking back, I definitely recognize early signs for sure,
yeah.
100%, really, really early.
And so many people that I've worked with within the mental health sector, patients that I've worked with, they quite often explain to me that they didn't know who and how to ask for help. They, like you, didn't understand what mental health was, what was a thought, what was a feeling. They didn't understand that. And one thing they certainly couldn't do was verbalize it and explain it in a way that they understood, or in the way that the adults that they were surrounded by would understand as well. Which is why one of the things that I did when I created the iSpace um, well-being resources was I created a language and
Yeah,
visuals to go along with it, so
yeah,
that it could make it really easy for everybody to understand and have a common language.
yeah.
And so, Jonny, was there any education in your school when you were there?
No, 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 not once. Not once was there any mental health education at all. Looking back, yeah, I went to an all boys primary school, and then I'm Jewish. I went to a Jewish secondary school, and nothing. Yeah, there was literally nothing. Yeah, I didn't even know. You know, we did have a counselor in my secondary school, but I didn't know until after I left, because I now work with my old school. I didn't know there was a counselor there. No one ever. I don't know. It's so weird looking back. No one ever signposted to the counselor, us to the counselor. No one ever talked about well-being or mental health. I mean, yeah, I look back and it's really strange. It feels very strange. And even when I went on to university actually. Even when I went to university, there was nothing. We had, you know, introductory sessions when we got to our halls of residence, and they talked about fire safety and security, but again, nothing about well-being or mental health. It just, yeah, it's just so strange. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so funny, Jonny, because I obviously went to university and went into the health sector of university, and I was put into halls of residence with many, many other healthcare trainees as well. And we were also taught about fire safety, but none of us were actually taught as a cohort anything about our own mental health and well-being. We did learn about it later on within our 3-year course, but it was just because it was part of the module and part of our work experience that we would work in a mental health hospital. So we learned it through the actual course we were on, but we weren't seen as individuals requiring that for ourselves. It was, we were training for it for others. So what's your understanding of universities today? I know that Ben West, for example, is doing amazing work within universities at the moment, trying to raise awareness around what is essential in terms of looking after every student's mental health and well-being. Ben's amazing. He's actually an ambassador for the charity, which is great. We're very lucky. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so much work to do. There is so much work to do. Universities, I'm sure Ben would agree, just don't put enough funding into their support. They really don't. Some universities are better than others, but so much more funding is needed, really, particularly after the last year that we've had. And, you know, students, I mean, online learning is hard, you know. I've spoken to some university students that have really struggled just having to be online and no face-to-face tutorial time. Really tough, really tough. And yeah, I just think there's such a long way to go in terms of, well, mental health in general, but I think student mental health, there is a long way to go for sure. 100%. But we'll get there. I think we'll get there. Absolutely. Well, definitely there is a great big drive to try and support those university students at the moment, from mental health advocates and ambassadors and campaigners, which is fantastic. There is the discussion at the moment as to whether or not parents should be informed when students are recognized as having difficulty. What's your view on that, Jonny? Do you have a view on that you'd like to share? Or
it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I mean, when I look back to my university days, I was really struggling, and so I got to the point where I had a breakdown at university in my third year, and I was really, really, really unwell. And I guess at that point, well, I was in a really, really bad place. And so at that point, and I was actually, eventually I was admitted to psychiatric hospital, and I had to drop out of university, and it was really awful. And so I guess at that point, my parents needed to know at that point. But it's so hard because, you know, I literally covered everything up. I just was so embarrassed and ashamed. And I think, you know, if I'd have known about this, like that my parents would have found out, I definitely wouldn't have said anything, because of the shame and the embarrassment. I would have just, well, I guess I did keep it covered up, but I did at least, I went to my student GP a few times. I was referred on to student counselling. I saw my student counsellor, but it's difficult because I think, you know, looking back, I probably would have hidden it even more if I'd have known that there was a risk that my parents found out. It's so tricky, but then obviously I needed them to find out in the end because I had that breakdown. It's really tricky one. It's really, really tricky.
It is really tricky. And because I've heard recently from some university lecturers about how they are trying to put education in place to support and help their students, but that they still find that students have this sense of weakness around talking about any issues that they might be struggling with. And what would your advice be, having experienced what you've experienced, to those young people who might be feeling that, oh, this is a weakness rather than a strength?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Well, firstly, just to say that, you know, I wish I would have opened up to my tutors. So I had to drop out of university, and I went back to university the next year, and my tutors were amazing. I was really embarrassed, but they were just so supportive and helpful, and I really, really appreciated that support. they checked in on me, but not in a sort of pressurizing way. They just, yeah, they would sort of every now and then they would check in on me, and I really appreciated that. And I've, not in all cases, but a lot of cases, I've spoken to students that have opened up to their tutors and had really good responses, really good responses. So, you know, if you are feeling embarrassed or like it's a weakness, just know that actually people will understand you and will get you and will be able to support you. You know, particularly if it's your tutor or, you know, going to your student GP. I think times have moved on since I was at university. When I saw my student GP, I didn't have a great experience, but that was, gosh, that was like 15 years ago now, I think. So I think times have moved on, and hopefully, you know, people will have a better experience with their student GP, hopefully. But there is so much support out there now, so much support and understanding. And, you know, I now see mental health struggles as a strength, not a weakness, really. I mean, some of the most creative and sensitive and intellectual people I know have got pretty serious mental health struggles, you know? So, yeah, it's absolutely a kind of a strength, I think, for me.
Absolutely. And it's about changing that narrative around the stigma or the shame that some people might have associated with mental health in the past. It's about breaking that down and really reassuring people that they can talk and ask for help, and that it is a strength to be able to do that. And so the work that I'm doing, it's about reversing right back to the very beginning, especially in terms of school life, so that we start teaching this to children from the age of 4, and we're teaching it alongside their parents, so these new parents coming in are also learning, and that hopefully that we can break that stigma down really, really early, and so that when they grow up and they are at university, they've already been really, you know, given the education and the tools and the resources to really help them to feel that this is just part of their everyday life, to seek help and support when they're struggling or when there's a challenge or adversity, especially what we've been through just recently with that pandemic. So certainly I think that advice for those students out there, really important, but we could probably apply that to our senior school students and to our younger primary students as well. You know, reaching out, knowing who and how to ask for help, really important. And Jonny, who would you ask for help? You know, if you needed support or help, who do you reach out to? Are you happy to share that with us?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, now, to be honest, I reach out to my dads now. And you know, I never would have imagined saying that like 10 years ago, but now my dad has much more of an understanding about my mental health and mental health in general. He's done a number of courses, and he runs a dad's forum, actually, for dads who have kids that struggle with their mental health. And yeah, it's very different now. He gets it, and he knows how to respond. Maybe I need to speak to my psychiatrist. Or maybe I need to look at my medication. You know, he knows, but it's taken a while to get there, which is why I think, you know, education for parents is just so important, so important. So actually, yeah, he's probably actually the first person I reach out to now, which I'm really lucky to have that. I know I'm really lucky, because obviously not everyone can maybe reach out to a family member, but I think, you know, just having even just one person, whoever it is, that you're able to reach out to, even if that's a helpline, that's amazing. You know, Shout or the Samaritans, whoever it is, just knowing that there's someone that you can contact when you're in a crisis, it makes a difference, I think.
Absolutely, I agree. And what we also do is we do a lot of signposting in schools now. And through the work that we do, every lesson has signposting at the end, starting from the family right through all the various different resources within the school, people that you can go and speak to Shout, the Mix, the Samaritans, Childline, all of those, you know, really reputable charities that people can reach out to, because it's really important that they know when they're being signposted that they are, you know, regulated areas that we're pointing them towards.
Absolutely.
And of course, your lovely charity as well is where they can also find information. And Jonny, I met your lovely dad. I had coffee with you once and your dad in London, and we had a lovely time together. So the work that he is doing out there and with young people, he's a wonderful, wonderful person, very kind and caring, very easy to engage with. And so big
Very
shout
lucky.
for your dad, and say a big
Thank
hello
you.
from me to him.
Thank you.
And I just thought we'd just cover a little bit about social media. We hear so much about social media, and like, I think there's a good side and not so good side to the social media. There are risks with it, but there is this such wonderful side to it as well, and it's trying to get that balance in the education around the two. But we do know that it not necessarily the social media, but social networking platforms can be areas where people can feel very vulnerable and can feel bullied on. And you know, during the pandemic, that was young people's source of support. It kept them in touch with their friends. It prevented boredom, and it prevented, in many ways, that feeling of isolation. However, there were some issues with it as well, in terms of looking at inappropriate content, and also this experience of feeling unhappy with breakups with friendships through online communication. Like, is there any advice that you can give to young people out there on how to manage this?
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, what I've learned for myself is I need to talk, because you know, things come up for me on social media that I find really difficult. I'm very sensitive, and you know, certain comments can really get to me, and I'll really dwell on it. And I've realized now that I need to talk to someone about that. And I'd say the same to a young person, you know, because it's horrible if, you know, you see something on social media or like WhatsApp, you see a message, and you know, it really affects you, and you don't tell anyone. It's like it hangs over you. It really hangs over you, and it's a horrible feeling, you know, when you know, you feel like you're being targeted or attacked or whatever it is. So I've learned now that, you know, again, I need to talk to someone when I'm in that place, because it's hard to process it on your own, you know. It's really hard, especially, you know, social media it's amazing, but it can be quite confusing. You know, I've certainly misinterpreted a lot of things, maybe that, oh, that person doesn't like me, or do you know what I mean? And it really plays on my mind, so I have to talk to someone about it. And when I talk to someone, I don't know, just hearing their advice and you know, their point of view, and maybe them reassuring me, it makes a difference. So I would say always reach out to a friend or a family member or teacher, you know, to say what is going on, because it's too much to carry on your own, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm totally with you about, you know, it's like you fall into these kind of thought holes. You know, you've only got one little bit of information, and it just brings you down a rabbit hole if you're trying to fill in the rest of it yourself. And you can end up with all kinds of thoughts around what is or what isn't. And so having that sounding board of another person to help you kind of fill in the gaps, and you know, just move you away from the stuff that you haven't got all the information on.
100%.
And do you do any kind of like technology free time? Do you have that? Do you do a Sunday where you just go, that's not coming out of the drawer today, it's going to stay in there? Or what do you do? Do you lock it in a cupboard or something?
You know what, actually, I did it on Monday, just two days ago. I on my iPhone, I moved all my apps to a different like window. Like I
Yeah.
literally dragged them across to a different part of my phone, because I had a quite difficult weekend with social media, and I was like Monday I was like I just want to detox from it, and I
Yeah.
know what I'm like. If it's there, I'll just click it. It's like
Yeah.
habit. I'll just click it. So I dragged all the apps to like a different side of my phone, and actually I did stay off them most of Monday. I think I might have checked once, but
Yeah.
it definitely helps. I needed a detox. I needed to have a break from it. It was getting really
Yeah.
overwhelming, and I felt better Monday evening. I felt so much better from having that little breakaway. Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I quite like going. So I live in London. I quite like going to the countryside where sometimes you might lose some signal, because it means that like you have no choice but to switch off.
Yeah.
You know, I know some people might find that hard, but yeah, I feel I do like some time away from not just from social media, but even emails. Sometimes it
Yeah.
can be so overwhelming. You know, your inbox just you just feel like you can never get through it. And again, time away from everything, I think is really important for me personally.
Yeah. Well, I believe that if you manage to empty your complete email box, that you get this lovely little celebration or a hot air balloon go up. I've never seen it. I don't think I will ever see it.
I
Um, but for
won't.
anybody out there who wants to take on the challenge of emptying out your email box, apparently you get a little surprise when you do.
Wow.
But
I'm with you. I'll
yeah.
never know that. Never.
But I love that idea of moving them all to the side and not seeing them there. I think young people, that would be a really good thing for them to do, to just clear it off over to the side and just free it up for a bit, and to feel that they are detoxing from it. Because, as you say, when it's sitting there in front of your face, it's very hard not to click and go in and keep checking. So that's
Yeah.
a really, really good tip. Thank you, Jonny. Now, just on that, thinking about detoxing and, having some space and some downtime. Um, Now, I know you practice mindfulness. I practice
Mm,
mindfulness as well. And we've
mm.
had this conversation about this when we met in London, and about the benefits of mindfulness. Now, when you start talking about mindfulness to people who've never practiced it before, they're kind of like, well, yeah, what, that's not for me. But actually, when you start practicing it and you exercise that muscle in your brain, and help, keep practicing bringing yourself into that present moment, and bringing an awareness and calming those thoughts down, and just, observing them and watching them pass, can be really, really beneficial. So
Yeah.
how have you found it beneficial for you, Jonny?
So I don't know if I've showed you this before, but I've got a little like demonstration that I like to use. I don't know if I've showed it to you. So I take this into schools actually, and I use it to explain mindfulness, because I think it's a really good illustration. That, I mean, it's full of glitter, and you see the glitter is just so. This is like my mind sometimes with my thoughts and feelings. It's so overwhelming, and it's hard to find some space. But like you were saying, with practice, I can, I can use meditation to kind of get me out of my head, get me in my body, in my breath, in the present moment. And when I'm in my body and like really focusing on my breath, then I'm not so caught up in my thoughts and feelings, and I get some space and things just settle. But like you say, it does take practice. And I often speak to people who say, I can't do mindfulness, or I tried, a couple of times I just gave up. And, I always say that it's like going to the gym when you build a muscle. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes work. It takes a lot of
It
work.
takes work.
And so does mindfulness. As you said, it's also training a muscle up here. But when it works, it has such benefit, to be able to just tune out for a little bit and come back into the present moment, and get some peace of mind and some clarity, yeah, it really, yeah, it has massive benefits for me at least, and I know for many other people. But it takes practice, it takes work, which
Absolutely.
yeah, I know. So, you know, I always wanted a quick fix. You know, I I just, yeah, always wanted a quick fix. But now I know that these things they take time. You've got to be patient with yourself.
Absolutely, they take time. Ruby Wax describes mindfulness in a really good way when she's introducing it to people for the first time and talking about how it takes practice. And she says, you know, you can't walk into the gym on the first day and expect to walk out with your six pack.
Yeah,
So it's
100%.
about, you know, understanding that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
certainly for me, when I started practicing mindfulness, well, before I started practicing, I would go running every day. I would
Mm,
run in the forest. I live on
mm,
a forest, and I would run every day. And I thought that was helping me to, you know, settle my thoughts and make me feel better. And I certainly would come back, and I would certainly have had experienced endorphins. I would certainly feel that I'd exercised. Did I feel I'd settled any thoughts? Not really. But when I started practicing mindfulness, after about 8 weeks, I suddenly went out and I was running. And this is the only way I can describe when I knew it was working, because I almost experienced this whole awakening. I went out on the same forest, the same track, and suddenly all of my senses, I was actually present. I could see the
mm,
flowers in a completely vibrant different color. You know, the sounds in the forest I could hear louder than I ever heard before. And I was completely present and was able to come back home and say, guess what I saw today? There was these
yeah,
lovely, you
yeah,
know, flowers. There was a deer in the woods, and there was these
yeah.
sounds, and the birds were singing, and it was completely different. And I actually
Amazing.
had a moment and an experience where I wasn't just churning over the week in my mind.
Mm,
So
yeah,
with practice, it is a wonderful experience
it's
and
so
can really
powerful.
make
It
you
can be
feel
so
present.
powerful.
So, so Jonny, we haven't really talked about parents, apart from your own parents. And
Yeah.
I'm very like you. The first person I probably would speak to is my mammy. In
Oh,
Ireland, no matter what time of night or day it
oh,
is, mammy is on the end of the phone.
that's so
Um,
nice. I love that.
so, and my dad is wonderful as well, but it's mammy who's first.
Really?
Um, and so, you know, how can we encourage young people to, like, I know everybody's relationship is different, but to have a person, whether it's a relative, not your mum or dad, but maybe aunt, uncle, you know, really important to speak to them. But maybe rather than thinking about the young people and advising them to speak to those people, what can we say to the parents about building the relationship with the child?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think you know, parents, adults need to be vulnerable as well with their children. Again, like when I was growing up, my parents, if there was any issues, they'd hide them. And children know, you know, they know. And I knew when there was a family illness and they were hiding. I knew. And I wish, and I'm not criticizing them at all, you know,
Yeah.
but I wish they would have, you know, been vulnerable in front of me and, you know, said when they were struggling or when someone else was struggling, because it was always, you know, putting on a mask. And yeah, I just think that. So interestingly, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer a few years ago, and he's doing okay now, thankfully. But when he got his diagnosis, it kind of changed him. He started opening up about his health, his physical
Yes.
health, and in turn his mental health, actually, how the cancer affected him.
Yes.
And yeah, I really appreciated that vulnerability that he
Yeah.
showed when, you know, struggling with the cancer. I think that definitely helped us to bond more.
Yeah, for
It's the
sure.
same.
For sure.
It shouldn't have taken a illness to,
Yeah.
you know, have that connection. So I think if parents, family members can practice some vulnerability in front of
Yeah.
their children and young people, and just be honest, you know, and be frank. Don't put that mask on, and don't try and don't hide things from children and young people. It takes practice, you know, because
Yeah.
you know we're not used to being honest and being frank and vulnerable in front of other people, particularly our children. But you know, yeah, my dad always says like the first conversation is the hardest, you know, and I agree. And then it gets a little bit easier every time, I think. But it does make a difference seeing adults show their vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's role modeling, isn't it? It's role modeling.
It
Parents need to
is.
role model
It's absolute role
for their
modeling,
children.
and it's trying to retrain adults and that kind of generation around expressing their feelings, and certainly one in particular is sadness, and being able to cry and to not see that as a weakness and showing somebody else that you're crying.
Yeah,
And certainly for men,
yeah,
men quite often find that really hard to cry in
yeah.
front of other people. Now, when I'm teaching young boys at school, because I had a little group of young boys once when they were asked a question about was it okay for boys to cry, and they said, well, it's okay for girls to cry. Girls can cry whenever they want to cry. They can cry for anything. Now,
Wow.
boys, they were saying, boys, this is about, they're probably age 7, these boys. And they said, boys can cry, but there would have to be blood. You know, you'd have to have really hurt yourself
Yeah.
and have a very bad graze, and there would have to be blood for boys to cry. Then
Wow.
it's okay. So, so I wrote this book, not a book, but I wrote a little story,
Yeah.
not like one of your books with chapters. I wrote a little 28-page story
Still.
for children on Boys Cry Too, and to
Mm.
really let them see that it's okay. And I quite often bring in the rugby men teams at the
Yeah.
start when they're singing their national anthems, and I show them, look at those rugby
Yeah.
men crying, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to express
Yeah.
that emotion. It's a communication. You're supposed to express it. And for the
100%.
parents, I teach them about expressing emotions in the same way. I say, imagine you had a football, and this
Mm.
football is all your emotions, and you just push that football underwater all of the
Mm.
time. And then the pressure builds up, and
Mm.
somewhere, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but that
Yeah.
ball is going to come up, and quite often it will hit you in the face.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
so we've got to let these feelings out. And quite often with boys and with girls as well, um, if you suppress that sadness, quite often it comes out as anger, and then
Sure.
we're trying to deal with something completely different and a completely
Sure.
different behavior. So really important, Jonny, and thank you for sharing that about, be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable, and vulnerable actually is really strength, moving
Yeah.
forward. And
Yeah.
and we have to remember that, and that vulnerability brings us out of our comfort zone
Yeah.
into our growth zone,
Yeah.
and there we can thrive. So yeah, everybody,
Yeah.
let's show that bit of vulnerability. Um,
Yeah. I always I am inspired when people show their vulnerability. I really am. Particularly men. If I see men being vulnerable, yeah, it inspires me every time.
yeah,
Every time.
absolutely, for sure, for sure. Um, So, Jonny, what's your little what is it that brings you happiness? What is your what I would say to the children at school, I would say, what brings you to planet happiness? What puts you on planet happiness?
Yeah.
So, what's your happy thing?
Uh, s- uh, Singing, dancing, music for me. I've got a big happy playlist. Yeah, I've just, especially during lockdown actually, because I live on my own, and music's really helped actually. Having music on, you know, the lockdown was long. Well, each
Yeah,
of the lockdowns, I mean,
yeah,
but and you know, it was lonely, but music, yeah, for me, you know, I just switch on certain songs and just instantly feel different. It's
yeah.
amazing the power of music. So for me, yeah, that's. But music, singing, dancing, yeah, that's what really makes me happy.
I'm
And being
glad you
with other
mentioned
people.
that. Yeah, connection, so important,
Yeah,
isn't it? Which is why that lockdown was so hard, because
I know,
we didn't have that connection, and
I
that
know.
loss of that connection was so hard. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned music that puts you on your plan of happiness,
Mhm.
and that you have a happy playlist to bring
Yeah,
you there.
yeah.
Because I had this conversation with children who were transitioning from year 8 into their senior school at year 9, and they were feeling really unhappy, and they had to travel an hour to their new school on transport.
Yeah.
And I was saying to them, well, they were feeling really down first thing in the morning, and that journey
Mm.
was really challenging for them. And
Yeah.
I said, well, look, what do you do? What are you spending your time doing when you're on the
Yeah.
bus? Are you talking to other people? They said, no, everybody is, into their phones, and they're
Mhm.
or they're asleep. And
Mm.
I said, okay, so what are you doing then? And they said, well, I'm listening to my music, but that doesn't really help. So I said, well, what are you listening to? And
Yeah.
the music they were listening to was so sad that I felt, okay, no, do we have to change this? We want you on that bus, and we want those shoulders moving, and you want to get up and dance, but you can't. But that's the mood we want to create when you're on
Yeah.
the bus, not I want to be at home under the duvet. So we
Yeah.
changed the playlist, and they had Can't Touch This on it. They even put a song from Finding Nemo
Ah, wow.
in their playlist, called Just Keep Swimming.
Okay.
And so they put that in there. They had Shake It Off. They completely changed it. And within a week, their mood completely changed. And
Wow.
they were excited about creating a new playlist, a new happy playlist, and adding to it as well. So,
Wow.
when we're creating our playlists, we've got to have those ones that want to get us up and get moving. The ones in the
Yeah.
car that you want to really sing along to.
That's amazing though, isn't it? The power of music. Really.
The
I
power of
mean,
music.
yeah. Or any power of any creativity, any music, film, art, uh, such powerful mediums, aren't they? Really.
Absolutely. So everybody out there listening, get your happy list,
Mhm.
create that lovely new list, and get it going. And it will certainly want you getting up there dancing. And you can check out some of Jonny and Louisa's dance moves
Oh yeah.
over on Beyond. They are fantastic, and certainly have had myself and my daughter trying to copy them, but we've got a little way to go.
Oh, it's okay.
um,
Nah,
but
we're not
Jonny,
that good.
thank you. No, you're brilliant. TikTok,
Uh,
Jonny and Louisa, get your moves on. They're fantastic.
I think
Um,
Louise has literally just joined at this point. That's
oh,
so
has she?
funny.
She's missed the wonderful praise we're giving her. She's
Uh,
going to be thinking about getting her next TikTok dance moves going. I will be watching and trying to keep up at home with you guys.
maybe
Um,
we can do a iSpace Beyond.
Maybe we could. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to try that. I'd like to give that a
Okay.
go. Let's see. Let's see what we can do with that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Jonny, you have been amazing tonight.
Oh no, thank you.
The
Thank
what you've
you.
shared with us is just so valuable and so helpful to so many people. The work you
Oh
are
no,
doing
thank
out
you.
there across all the different things that you do is just phenomenal.
Thank
And I'm very excited about doing future work with you and your wonderful charity, and with Louisa as well.
thank you.
Please, anybody, do send Jonny and Louisa through the Beyond charity a message, or if you're interested in finding out more about what they do, please pop over there and have a look. If you're interested in what iSpace Wellbeing is doing, then do come and have a look at us as well. We are on the Beyond
Yeah.
library list as well, and offering resources over there on their charity too. So thank you everybody for joining
Oh,
us.
thank
You've been
you.
amazing, for listening in, and I'll hopefully see you very soon. But Jonny, rest assured, I will look after Jake for you, your llama, over at the
Oh,
llama park,
amazing.
and make sure that he is doing well.
So take some pictures. Put some pictures on
I
tomorrow.
will put some pictures up for you and Rich, who I'm going to be
Amazing.
doing some work with very shortly.
Oh, amazing.
So
Amazing.
Brilliant. Jonny, have a lovely evening.
You
Take
too.
care and
Thank
talk to you
you.
again soon.
Thanks very
Bye.
much. Take
You're
care.
welcome, Jonny. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.